Hey everyone, this is another video for Earsketch, and this one I want to introduce how to make for loops. And I'll show you the reason for this. So over here, if you see, I'm an example of a make beat pattern here, and when we run it, this is what it sounds like. So good pattern, right? But it only lasts for one measure. So what if we wanted this now to repeat for a whole song? Well, here's the problem. As it stands right now, the only way for us to do that is to repeat this make beat function over and over again and just change up the starting measure. However, we have a much easier way of doing this. Okay, and I'll show you. So if you're watching from class, I'll get you to follow along with me, and we'll just review making a make beat and then adding a for loop to it. Okay, so we'll create a new script by clicking the plus sign, and we're going to call this make beats. So I got my cap locks. Make beats for loop practice. You don't have to make the name of your script that long. Right, make sure that we're in Python, and then we'll create. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable. This is just a review of all the concepts so far. And remember, we always want to use this top variable with the equal sign. So I'll drag it. And where the number one is, we're going to replace that with quotations. And I'll just make this very simple beat so far. So I'll just put in 0, which is a downbeat, dash is a rest, 0, dash, 0, dash, 0. Okay, now if we run it, nothing happened so far. Okay, I'm going to change the A, change that to say the name is now beat1. So remember, right, this means that we're saving this beat pattern, which is in the quotations or string, and you read it right to left. So we're saving that into a variable called beat1. Okay, now we can click on Earsketch and we can drag in a make beats. Okay, and for the sound, I'm going to drag in another variable. This one is going to be, we'll do a kick drum. And if you want to find single hit sounds, for example, a kick drum, you can write in OS underscore kick. And now we have different kick drums to follow along with. Right, same thing. You wanted a snare. For hi-hats, you would actually need to say OS closed hi-hats. And let's just see if there's an open hi-hat. Yeah, and they have open hi-hats too. Okay, so actually, I'm going to change kick. I'll change it to snare for now, since that will show up or be able to hear it a little bit more clearly on our computers. So snare, and I'll add in snare 1. Okay, now we can go ahead and start adding these to our make beats. So make beats for sound, I'm typing in snare. Track, we'll get this to start track 1. Get this to start on measure 1. And for beats, I'm just going to make sure it says beat1 to match our variable here. Okay, and there we have it. Okay, so we got a simple pattern. Now, how can we get this to repeat for a full song? This is where a for loop comes in. So for the for loop, if I click on this yellow button, control flow, and what we're going to do is we're going to drag this first block, this one over here, for, okay, drag it in, and where we have print, I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to drag the make beat into the for loop. Okay. So from there, and I'll explain a little bit about what this for loop does. So it repeats whatever's inside, and you can have more than one thing inside. I'll show you that in a second. From here, their default variable is I, but for our purposes in Earsketch, I'm going to call that measure. And in here, you can set the range that you want it to run from. So beginning range, right? So you might want this to start at 1, change it to 1, and let's get this to end at, maybe we'll get it to end at, say, 13 for now. Okay, so if you notice, this is affecting the measure. So what I'm going to do now, rather than having a 1 in the measure, I'm actually going to delete this 1 and type in measure. And let's see what it looks like. And there you go. Right now we have it repeating. Great. Okay. From here, so let's back up a bit. Basically, what's happening now is we've set a range here. Okay. And rather than having a number where the start would usually be, variable for measure. And what it's doing is, so start at 1, measure 1, runs. We need it for measure 2, right? Increases the measure 2, that runs. Measure 3, that runs all the way up until we get to measure 12. So if you notice, we put 13 here, but that last one doesn't get included. So that's the ending measure, but it doesn't get included in the for loop. I'll take it out of block mode for a second. So if you're typing this by script, what you need to make sure you do is put a full colon after the range here. And you need to make sure that the make beat is indented. Okay, for now though, I'll keep it in block mode for us. Okay, so now we can manipulate things. So say we didn't want this to start at 1, but we wanted it to start at measure 3. We can do that as well. Okay, so now when we scroll, you'll see that we start at measure 3 and 1 and 2 are blank. Say we wanted to start at measure, let's say 7. Run it. Now it's only starting at measure 7. Okay, let's try and get one other thing in. So let's do another make beats. And for this one, I'm going to have this be, we'll do a closed hi-hat. So I'm going to just call it hi-hat. OS closed hi-hat. I'll just use the first one. And hi-hat. So remember, we want this to be in the track below. So this is track 2. Start is going to be measure. But I'll show you some cool things that we can do. And let's do another beat pattern for this. This can be beat 2. And this one will be another simple pattern, actually. This one I'm going to make all zeros. So if we run it, oh, one sec. We got to change that to beat 2. Now if we run it, let's see, define hi-hat. Oh, spelled hi-hat wrong. There we go. And beats 2. There we go. So this is what it sounds like now. Okay, let's do here's some other things we can do. So in this measure part, I'm going to add a few more zeros to it as well. So in this measure part, say I didn't want it to start at the same time as number 1. I want it to start at number 3. Here's what we can do. You can actually put measure plus 2. Now we run it. And now, if you notice, it starts at measure 3, even though this for loop has it starting in range 1. And that's because we put plus 2 as a starting. So now it sounds something like this. All right, and right, we can manipulate that. Right, and then we can put in drum fills and all that other stuff later on. Okay, one other thing. So I showed you that you can start at a measure later. You can also start part way through a measure. Say I said just plus 0.5. So if you notice, it actually starts part way through measure 1 here, kind of like this. Which can be kind of cool. So say I reduced zeros on beat 2. So now, maybe a few more zeros. So now you can actually use the for loop to kind of layer things. All right, so I'll post this. Find my class. Feel free to ask any questions, but for now, play around with these, add these for loops to your make beat scripts. And then after that, there will also be some practice posted on Etsy. All right, thanks guys. Take care for now.